Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patrons, Bill S., David H., David E., and Bob C. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. First up today, it looks like the highly requested Apple Music app is going to make it to the Tesla UI. This is not Apple CarPlay, that is separate. This is just the direct Apple Music app. This was first seen at the Peterson exhibit over the weekend. This is not official and this is not available yet. Again, this was just seen at that museum exhibit. However, this would be a pretty good sign that we should expect it in the weeks ahead. Many people, of course, are defaulting to think that maybe we'll get it for the holiday update. Once a year toward Thanksgiving or Christmas, Tesla likes to release a holiday update with some bigger, more impactful updates. This comes about 1 month after we learned that Apple and Mercedes are working on this new partnership to develop spatial audio with support for Dolby Atmos to become available as a native experience in Mercedes vehicles. Apple Music with spatial audio comes fully integrated through the MBUX infotainment system. For real audio aficionados, many people prefer Apple Music to Spotify just because of the quality when it comes to Apple Music and features like spatial audio, lossless audio, which is a closer to studio quality than what you may get in an app like Spotify, where you have some loss between the two. Those two being the studio recording and then what you actually hear in your car speakers. And of course, Dolby Atmos, which is the theater experience where you have sounds coming all around your head. I think Tesla Raj was the first one to spot this. He's saying no word on Dolby Atmos. And on this news, I see a lot of people complaining, why doesn't Tesla have an app store? What are they doing? It's a lot of money left on the table. While that may be true, they have to wait to have a bigger user base. They need more vehicles on the road because you're not going to have developers wanting to develop apps where the entire addressable market is, only around 3 million. But of course, as Tesla's fleet continues to grow, that developer pool will open up for developers wanting to develop specific apps for a Tesla app store in the future. And while it's not official, it does seem very likely. It says a premium connectivity subscription is required to stream Apple Music over a cellular connection. The latest data that I could find has Apple Music making up 15% of all streaming service listeners in the global market. That would be second place behind Spotify. Spotify has around 31% of the worldwide market share. So outside of some Chinese companies that have multiple music streaming services like Tencent, Apple would be the second biggest globally. Moving on in true Tesla fashion, they have 2 new job postings. First is Area Construction Manager in Corpus Christi, Texas, where the lithium refinery is expected to be. The second one is an Area Superintendent, again in Corpus Christi. You'll be playing a critical role in construction of novel battery chemical plants near Corpus Christi, Texas. Tesla is literally still negotiating this deal with commissioners from Nueces County, and they're not expected to make a decision on some of the tax abatements until December 7th, but Tesla looking to get a jump on this to potentially start hiring candidates for these jobs. If you ask me, this is a signal that Tesla has confidence a deal will get done. Probably the biggest news of the day, it looks like Tesla is going to use TSMC for its hardware for computer for FSD. Previously, we thought they were going to use Samsung and that it would be a 7 nanometer transistor technology, but it looks like Tesla will be using TSMC's 4 or 5 nanometer tech. Basically, the lower the number, the smaller the size of the transistors, the more you can fit on a chip, the more efficient they are. But there are some reliability questions with the smaller transistor sizes as it's more advanced technology with less testing. For Tesla's Hardware 3 FSD computer, Samsung was the one that actually manufactured that chip. It started as a 14 nanometer process and then later was updated to 7 nanometers. To date, TSMC's top 7 customers have not included any pure car manufacturers, but that's all set to change with this new deal with Tesla. With Tesla's big order registration, next year it has the chance to become one of TSMC's top 7 customers for the first time. Here's a list of TSMC's biggest customers at the end of last year. Far and away, Apple in the number 1 spot. Tesla, if they do make this list and become 7th, they would be slotting in where Sony is right now. And as I said, up until now, we were expecting this to be between Tesla and Samsung. Their foundry divisions had been working on the design and samples of Hardware 4 since the beginning of this year. recently Tesla decided to outsource hardware for to Samsung. It was virtually a done deal. The hardware for would be produced in South Korea, and this all made sense because yes, Samsung was making hardware 3 for Tesla already. You may recall back at AI Day, Elon said, "I'm confident hardware 3 or FSD computer 1 will be able to achieve FSD at a safety level much greater than a human, probably 200 to 300% better. Obviously, there will be a future hardware 4 or FSD 2, probably introduced with the Cybertruck maybe in a year or so." And now is the time for Tesla to move and make a final decision because it takes around a half a year for the wafer foundry to produce new products to the end market. So Tesla wanting to introduce this hardware 4 in the Cybertruck with production in the middle of next year. Now is the time to finalize these deals. It goes without saying, everything happening in the semiconductor industry right now is vital to our future. So just know that a nanometer is a tiny measure of length, and the nanometer parameter is just the size of the transistors that actually make up a computer's central processing unit and the spacing or the distance from one another. Smaller transistors generally perform better because, as I said, they take up less space. You can pack more transistors on a chip, which in turn results in more processing power. And smaller transistors do require less energy as well, and there's less heat dissipation. A little fun fact, more than 70% of semiconductor revenue and 90% of the chips globally are built on 7 nanometer or older process technology, meaning 7 nanometers or higher. So Tesla using 4, 5, or 6 nanometers for hardware 4 puts it in a league of its own, only around 10% of chips globally right now. And this whole industry is just really mind-blowing when you look into it. A human hair, for comparison, 100,000 nanometers in diameter. And I do find the timing interesting that Warren Buffett just bought about $5 billion worth of TSMC stock in the quarter, which could signal that there's some value emerging in the chip industry after a turbulent period marked by slowing demand and US-China tensions. And what this might mean for Tesla, Elon has said that hardware 3 would be enough to achieve full self-driving. No one really knows if there will be retrofits for hardware 4 just yet. The hardware 3 fleet is pretty large, and just given chip supplies, I wouldn't expect it. But who ultimately knows? And hardware 3 was supposed to be about 300% safer than a human, but for hardware 4.0, Elon said that number could increase to 1000%. Keep in mind, it's important to clarify, Tesla has actually designed this chip. It's just actually being manufactured or produced by apparently TSMC. But this is Tesla designed and created silicon. It's supposed to be supplied to Tesla from TSMC at the new plant in Arizona. And for context, Tesla's D1 chip for the Dojo supercomputer uses 7 nanometer technology, so hardware 4 set to be the next generation of the more advanced tech. So we thought it was going to be Tesla and Samsung using a 7 nanometer technology for hardware 4, but now it looks like they're going to be moving to TSMC and using a 4, 5, or 6 nanometer tech. Many industry analysts were saying Tesla would stick with Samsung and the 7 nanometer tech because it was more reliable and more widely used, but Tesla switching to TSMC should at least have the potential for a lot more processing power and more efficiency. All right, shifting gears to Elon's 2018 pay package trial. It is now officially over, but we may not have an actual verdict for another few weeks or even months. And some lawyers have made the case that an appeal to the Delaware Supreme Court is not out of the question, and there was another case of a briefly tenured Disney CEO that went on for over a decade. We have 2 quick Tesla recalls, both of which are going to be fixed with over-the-air updates. The first one impacts around 29,000 vehicles. This was for the front passenger airbag deploying in unintended configurations during certain low-speed collision events. And the remedy? An OTA update. And the second one impacting an estimated 321,000 vehicles. And for this one, in rare instances in Model 3 and Model Ys, tail lamps on one or both sides of the vehicles may intermittently illuminate due to a firmware anomaly. Remedy? OTA update. This is data from transportation.gov NHTSA recalls by manufacturer, all for this year. As you can see, Ford with the most, 63 or 18%, VW second most, 41 recalls or 11%, and Tesla's over here with 19 recalls or 5%. And further, most of these recalls for Tesla, as we know, are OTA updates, so they probably should not be classified as a recall to begin with. When it comes to FSD version 11, about a week ago, Elon said it'll take a few weeks to expand the beta, then another few weeks to go to wide release to the US and Canada. Then, still talking about V11, Elon said making good progress, still tracking to wide release next month, meaning sometime in December. And importantly, Zach asked, by wide release next month, do you mean to those who currently have the beta or to anyone who bought FSD who won't have to do the safety score? Elon said the latter. So if I'm interpreting this correctly, it looks like Tesla's FSD version 11 is set to go to a wide release, meaning to anyone who has paid for FSD next month. So yes, that could mean Tesla recognizing some of that deferred revenue from this wide release. Don't forget what Elon said in October of last year. The day FSD goes to wide release will be one of the biggest asset value increases in history. Now, of course, this has the spirit of robotaxi underlying it for that real asset value increase, but obviously a wide release would mean we're on that path. Sawyer tweeted that Tesla confirmed the Cybertruck body does in fact use steel produced by Steel Dynamics. This was from one of the plaques at the Peterson Museum over the weekend. Both Starship exterior and the Cybertruck body utilize steel produced by Steel Dynamics Inc. If you want to see a deep dive on Tesla's special alloy for the Cybertruck, check out this video linked up here. Dominos has chosen to electrify its delivery fleet, starting with 800 Chevy Bolts. The word is 100 of these will roll out this month, and the remaining 700 will roll out in the months to come. And the VP of GM Fleet said the Chevy Bolt EV is the future of Domino's electrified deliveries. Google Maps has released an update that will now help people to find where they can locate DC fast chargers. If you search for charging station in Google Maps, a new option now appears that allows you to filter out to show only fast charge stations that are compatible with the plug your car uses. So you can find any plugs for fast chargers here, or again, you can sort by just plugs that are compatible with your vehicle. To wrap up today, we have to at least touch on Tesla stock. What's going on today? Now we've dipped into the 160s. Now it's never just one thing. However, this could be playing a part in the move today. Beijing facing the most severe COVID test as there are now some deaths from COVID in the area, which of course brings back the word that nobody wants to hear, lockdowns. Let's have a look at the PE compression. So looking at Tesla's fiscal year 2023 estimate, the forward-looking estimate that most people pay attention to, if you plug in a $7 earnings per share, which is middle of the road, that would give us a forward PE of 24. Remember, Tesla is expected to grow around 40 to 50% next year, despite all of the recession talk. So the question is starting to become, how much lower can Tesla go? Well, so far, for some context, right now the market is valuing Nvidia, which is expected to grow revenues less than 5%, right now at 36 times 2023 EPS. And it's valuing Netflix, which is expected to grow revenue less than 10% at 28 times 2023 EPS. So I do think it's fair to start saying that objectively Tesla is undervalued, at least when compared to other stocks. So something like 45 to 50 times forward PE seems a lot more reasonable than 24, again, strictly when you compare to other stocks. Of course, long-term opportunities like this are a gift, nothing has changed, but people have asked me, what do I expect in the short term? I'll be honest, personally, I won't be surprised if Tesla does retest this prior level of around the 140 range. And no, it's not necessarily because of this head and shoulders pattern that everybody seems to be talking about, although I do think there's some value into looking at things like this because all the charts show us are previous historic behaviors, and it comes down to psychology at different levels. So when investors see Tesla stock at a certain price, it causes certain behaviors. And I know many of you don't like TA, but I have friends on Wall Street and there are divisions at these huge organizations where they only focus on TA. So it absolutely does matter because big money uses it, and that's what drives the market. Point being, today we're flirting with this previous level of resistance, but if we do break through that, the next level would be in that 140 to 145 range where Tesla stock spent an extended period of time. And I've said for a while now, Tesla stock could go lower. We're still reliant on the incoming data on inflation and the jobs market. So if interest rates have to go up higher than 6 or 7%, that's not yet out of the realm of possibilities, which would mean more pain ahead for growth stocks like Tesla. I'm only going over this because I think now a lot of people are considering margin or YOLOing, basically all in into Tesla if they're not already, because of these low prices. But again, I just want to caution that there could be further downside ahead before we see the ultimate rebound. But most importantly, you should feel excellent about buying Tesla shares at a forward PE of around 24, especially when right now the market is putting higher multiples on other companies that are expected to grow at a much slower clip. And two quick ones on Canada. So Rivian has started international deliveries of the first R1T and R1S. Right now they are just to employees, but the first customer deliveries are right around the corner. And you may recall that geofence that was there for downtown Toronto. Well, that has finally been removed with FSD Beta 69.3.1. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.